The Shoshone National Forest stretched like a primordial entity, its vast canopy of lodgepole pine, Douglas fir, and quaking aspen weaving a tapestry that smothered the horizon in every direction. A living sea of green that seemed to pulse with its own inscrutable rhythm. Tower 7, my outpost for the past 3 months, clung to a jagged granite outcrop, its weathered wooden frame groaning under the weight of July's relentless heat. The air thick with the scent of baked earth and resinous pine. The tower was a relic of the 1930s, its clapboard siding bleached to a ghostly gray by decades of sun and wind, its tin roof pocked with rust that wept red stains in the rain. Yet, it was my sanctuary, a deliberate retreat from the wreckage of my divorce, the suffocating clamor of city life, and the memories of a marriage that had crumbled like ash in my hands. 3 hours from the nearest town, down a serpentine gravel road that twisted through the wilderness like a scar, Tower 7 offered a silence so profound it felt sacred, broken only by the wind's mournful sigh through the treetops, the distant screech of a red-tailed hawk, or the tower's own creaks, like the labored breaths of an ancient sentinel. I had grown attuned to its rhythms, each sound and sensation a thread in the fabric of my days. The groan of the spiral iron stairs at dawn, their bolts rattling under my boots as I climbed to the observation room. The way sunlight fractured through the room's dusty, warped windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the pine floorboards. The ritual of scanning the horizon for smoke, a task that demanded a monk's patience and a hunter's precision. The observation room, a cramped 12 by 12 square, was my universe, its walls papered with faded maps and yellowed notices, its air heavy with the must of old wood and the faint tang of kerosene. A desk, scarred from years of use, anchored one corner, cluttered with topographic maps, logbooks, a chipped ceramic mug bearing the Forest Service logo, and a battered laptop that wheezed when it powered on. A cot sagged against the opposite wall, its wool blanket threadbare, beside a cast-iron wood stove that hissed and popped in the evenings, its glow painting the room in flickering shades of amber. A radio, its dials scratched and faded, sat on a shelf, crackling occasionally with the voices of other lookouts, their towers mere specks on my maps, separated by miles of unforgiving wilderness. The solitude was not merely welcome. It was a necessity, a balm for a heart bruised by betrayal, a chance to rebuild myself in the quiet of the wild, where the world's demands could not reach. After my divorce, the city had become a prison of noise and memory, every street corner a reminder of promises broken, every crowded cafe a mirror to my isolation. Here, in Tower 7, I could breathe, the forest's vastness a canvas for my thoughts, its silence a mirror that reflected only what I chose to see. Yet, that July afternoon, as I sipped coffee, its bitterness grounding me against the heat that pressed through the open windows, a faint unease stirred, a prickle at the base of my skull, as if the forest's silence held a secret it wasn't ready to share. My shirt clung to my sweat-soaked back, the air thick with the scent of pine resin and dust, and I lifted my binoculars, their weight familiar in my hands, for the afternoon scan. The forest sprawled below, its canopy a mosaic of shadows and light, unbroken save for the faint ribbon of a trail snaking south, a barely visible path that wound toward the park's entrance, rarely used this far into the backcountry. Hikers were scarce, their figures fleeting in my lenses, and those who ventured here moved with purpose, as if aware of the forest's weight, its unspoken rules. Section 4 clear? I muttered, scribbling in my notebook. The pencil scratched loud in the stillness, a counterpoint to the tower's creaks, which seemed sharper today, more insistent. The mountains rose northwest, their peaks like jagged teeth against a sky too blue, too perfect, their slopes cloaked in a mist that shimmered faintly, almost imperceptibly, as if alive. I told myself it was the heat, a mirage born of exhaustion, but the unease lingered, a whisper in my bones that the forest was watching, its gaze ancient and unyielding. My routine was a lifeline, a bulwark against the isolation's slow erosion. Wake at dawn, brew coffee in a dented percolator, check weather reports on the laptop, log overnight changes, shifts in wind direction, drops in temperature, update maps with any trail closures or fire risks, and sweep the horizon, quadrant by quadrant, for the faintest wisp of smoke. The work was repetitive, almost meditative, giving structure to days that could otherwise dissolve into the forest's timeless hush. I adjusted my binoculars, sweeping northwest, the lenses warm from the sun, and paused to wipe sweat from my brow. The heat oppressive, the air heavy with a tension I couldn't name. The tower groaned, a low, resonant sound, as if the wood itself sensed something amiss, and I glanced at the windows, half expecting to see a shadow move beyond the glass. But there was only the forest, endless and silent, its secrets buried deep. The radio's crackle shattered the quiet, a harsh burst that jolted my hand, nearly toppling my mug, the coffee sloshing onto the desk, a dark stain spreading across my logbook. Static roared, a white noise tempest that seemed to vibrate the air, before a voice broke through, distorted and urgent, its words slicing through the interference like a blade through flesh. Alan Peterson. My name, spoken with chilling clarity, sent a shiver through me, my pulse quickening as I grabbed the handset, its plastic cold despite the room's heat. "This is Tower 7. Go ahead." The voice rasped, barely audible, as if fighting to be heard through a veil of distance or time. "Danger coming, not what it seems." I leaned closer, straining against the static's howl, the speaker's urgency a physical weight pressing against my chest. "Repeat your message. I can't understand you. Over." More static, a chaotic surge. Then, "They're coming. Prepare." The words dissolved into unintelligible noise, the signal collapsing into a void of white sound that seemed to pulse with intent, as if the radio itself were alive, conspiring with the forest's secrets. I tried again, switching channels, twisting dials with trembling fingers, my breath shallow, but the radio offered only silence, its lights flickering erratically, as if the tower resisted the message, its circuits rebelling against an intrusion. The transmission broke every protocol. No call sign, no identification, just my name, spoken as if the speaker knew me intimately, their voice carrying a weight that lingered in the air, a violation of the tower's isolation that felt personal, deliberate. Only headquarters and the other towers had my details, stored in a registry accessible only to Forest Service personnel. And even they rarely used my first name, opting for Tower 7 in their clipped, professional exchanges. The breach gnawed at me, a crack in the sanctuary I'd built, and I replayed the voice in my mind, its tone both unfamiliar and hauntingly intimate, as if it spoke from a place I'd forgotten. I reached for the satellite phone, its plastic warm from the sun, and dialed headquarters, my hand unsteady despite my efforts to stay calm. The dial tone a faint lifeline to the outside world. "Shoshone Forestry Services." A woman's voice answered, crisp and professional, her tone a stark contrast to the chaos of the radio. "This is Alan Peterson, Tower 7. I just received an unusual radio transmission. Has anyone reported interference?" A pause, the faint click of a keyboard, a sound that felt absurdly normal in the wake of the voice's warning. "Negative, Tower 7. All stations reported normal communications at the last check-in." What kind of interference? I hesitated, the words feeling foolish even as I spoke them, my voice betraying a tremor I couldn't suppress. Someone called me by name, mentioned danger. The signal was weak, broke up fast. Another pause, longer, the silence stretching like a taut wire. "Could be someone pulled your info from the registry, playing a prank. I'll alert the other towers to report anything unusual. Unless you need immediate assistance." "No, I'm fine. Just checking." I hung up, the click of the receiver too loud in the stillness, the woman's explanation ringing hollow, a bandage on a wound I couldn't see. I contacted the two nearest towers, Tower 5, 12 miles northeast, perched on a ridge overlooking a glacial valley, and Tower 9, 15 miles south, nestled in a clearing ringed by aspens. Their lookouts, grizzled veterans with voices roughened by years in the wild, reported clear channels, no strange activity, their tones casual, almost dismissive. "Probably some kid with a radio." Tower 5's lookout, a man named Hank with a smoker's rasp, grunted, his laugh crackling through the speaker. "Happens every season, Peterson. Don't let it spook you." I forced a chuckle, but the explanation felt inadequate, the voice's urgency a splinter in my mind, Its words, not what it seems, echoing like a prophecy. By evening, I'd convinced myself it was a prank, a seasonal worker's attempt to break the monotony of long shifts in towers that felt like islands in a green sea. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the forest in hues of amber and shadow, the air cooling as I logged my final scan, the routine grounding me, though the tower's creaks grew louder, more insistent, as if straining against a wind that wasn't there. Its groans a chorus of unease that mirrored my own. Sleep came fitfully, the cot's springs digging into my back, the blanket too thin against the night's chill, the tower's noises sharper, more purposeful, as if the wood itself were alive, protesting an unseen force. Twice, I rose to check the supports, my flashlight's beams slicing through the dark, revealing only the stairwell's iron railings, their paint chipped and flaking, and the observation room's familiar clutter. Maps curling at the edges, a half-empty water bottle glinting in the moonlight. At 3 a.m., footsteps echoed on the stairs, slow and deliberate, each thud vibrating through the wood, a rhythm too measured for an animal, too heavy for wind. I grabbed the flashlight, my heart pounding, and crept to the stairwell, the beam trembling in my grip, my breath catching in my throat. The steps were empty, the air cold and still, yet the silence felt alive, expectant, as if the tower held its breath, waiting for me to act. I returned to my cot, the hunting knife at my hip a cold comfort, its leather sheath worn smooth from years of use, and lay awake, the footsteps echo lingering like a warning whispered in the dark, the forest beyond the windows a vast, unreadable text. Morning light filtered through the windows, chasing away the night's unease. The forest bathed in golden hues, its canopy shimmering under a clear sky, the air crisp with the promise of a new day. I brewed coffee, the percolator's gurgle a ritual that steadied my nerves, the mug's warmth anchoring me as I settled into my chair for the day's first scan. The binoculars heavy in my hands, their lenses fogging slightly from the morning chill. The radio call faded to a memory, a quirk of isolation, but a faint disquiet lingered, like a note played just out of tune, a dissonance I couldn't shake. I checked the weather reports on the laptop, its screen glowing harshly in the dim room. Clear skies for 5 days, no storms forecast. The data a reassurance against the previous night's strangeness, a tether to the rational world. Yet, as I swept my binoculars northwest, dark clouds gathered over the distant mountains, their edges boiling, not drifting, as if alive, their movement defying the wind's gentle push, a choreography that felt deliberate, unnatural. The clouds were a bruise on the horizon, their mass spreading like ink across the sky, their shapes twisting into forms that seemed almost sentient, tendrils curling, then retracting, like fingers testing the air, their surfaces glinting with an eerie, phosphorescent light. The sight chilled me, a violation of the forest's rhythms, and I double-checked the laptop, the forecast unchanged, its insistence on clear skies a mockery of the scene before me. The clouds grew darker, their edges pulsing faintly, as if breathing, and I felt a pressure in my chest, a sense that the forest was watching, its gaze ancient, unyielding, and utterly alien. By midday, the satellite phone showed no signal, its screen blank despite a full charge, a failure I'd never experienced. Even in storms that lashed the tower with rain and lightning, their fury shaking the windows in their frames. I tapped it against my palm, tried again. Nothing. The device a dead weight in my hand, its silence a betrayal. The radio still worked, its static a low hum, a background noise that seemed to carry a faint rhythm, like a heartbeat just out of sync with my own. The clouds' advance felt like a prelude, a warning I couldn't ignore, their presence a disruption that rippled through the forest's silence, the trees below standing too still, their needles glinting like eyes in the shifting light. At 4 p.m., movement caught my eye in Sector 6, a small clearing 2 miles out, framed by dense pines and tangled undergrowth, its grass swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. A figure moved through the clearing, not on any trail but cutting straight through the forest from the west, terrain so rough even rangers avoided it, its slopes strewn with boulders, choked with thorny brambles, and shadowed by cliffs that loomed like silent judges. I tracked them with my binoculars, their gait too fluid, too direct, as if the undergrowth parted for them, their path unwavering despite obstacles that should have slowed them, their movements precise, almost mechanical. They weren't a casual hiker, their purpose evident in each step, and my stomach tightened, the radio warning echoing. Not what it seems. Protocol demanded I assist potential hikers, but instinct urged caution. The figures approached too deliberate, too wrong, their silhouette blurring slightly at the edges, as if not fully anchored to the world. I prepared for a visitor, setting out water bottles, medical supplies, and a sleeping bag on the guest cot. A narrow frame tucked in the corner, its mattress sagging from years of disuse, its springs creaking as I adjusted it. The sky darkened prematurely, the clouds rolling in faster than any storm I'd seen, turning afternoon to dusk in minutes, their edges glowing with a sickly, greenish light that cast the forest in an unearthly pallor. I flicked on the exterior lights, their sodium glow illuminating the path to the tower, a winding trail of dirt and gravel that climbed the outcrop's steep slope, its surface scarred by years of erosion. Through the binoculars, the figure emerged from the treeline. Male, average height, in hiking clothes oddly clean for such rough terrain, no backpack or gear, his movements precise, his face obscured by shadow until he stepped into the light, his features too smooth, too perfect, as if sculpted rather than born. My hand hovered over the radio, instinct screaming to report this, but the warning's echo held me back, the tower creaking as if in agreement, its groans low and unnatural, as if the structure itself sensed a threat, its wood flexing like a living thing. 3 sharp knocks rattled the door, precise and forceful, each one a deliberate announcement that vibrated through the tower's frame, the sound echoing in the hollow of my chest. I took a deep breath, my hunting knife sheathed at my hip, its weight a cold reassurance, its leather grip worn smooth from years of use, and opened the door, the hinges creaking in protest, the air rushing in, heavy with the scent of pine and something sharper, like ozone before a storm. "Hello there," I said, forcing a neutral tone. My voice steady despite the pulse hammering in my ears, my eyes scanning the figure before me. "You're a long way from any trail." The man stood unsteadily, his clothes wrinkled but deliberately so, as if staged for effect. His face smudged with dirt over skin too fresh, too unmarred for days in the wild. His eyes dark and unblinking, scanning me with a focus that wasn't human curiosity but calculation. Their gaze lingering too long, as if peeling back my skin to see what lay beneath, a predator assessing its prey. "Got lost?" he rasped, his voice not parched but hollow, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than his throat, echoing faintly, as if spoken through a long tunnel. "Been wandering for days." I stepped back, gesturing him inside, my senses on edge, the air thickening with a tension I couldn't name, the tower's creaks growing sharper, as if the wood itself recoiled from his presence. "Come in. You must be exhausted." He moved too smoothly, his steps gliding over the floorboards, his eyes darting to my equipment. Radio, maps, logbooks, with a precision that chilled me, as if cataloging every detail for some unseen purpose. His movements too fluid, too deliberate, like a puppet guided by invisible strings. "I'm Alan, the fire watcher here. Let me get you water." He nodded, silent, his gaze lingering on the radio, its dials glinting in the dim light, as if it held answers he sought. His fingers twitching slightly, a gesture too small to be natural. I handed him a bottle, which he wetted his lips with but didn't drink, the gesture mechanical, performative, his eyes never leaving mine, their depths unreadable, like pools of ink. "How long you been out there?" "For days, maybe 5, he said, pausing too long, his eyes flickering as if searching for the right lie, his lips twitching in a way that suggested discomfort with the act of speaking. "Lost track." His lips weren't cracked, his skin unburned, his stubble barely a day's growth, his condition defying the harshness of the wilderness, where dehydration and exposure left their marks within hours. "You're in good shape for that long. What's your name?" Another pause, longer, his lips twitching as if testing the words, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if weighing my reaction. "Miller. John Miller." The name sounded like a question, a placeholder spoken with uncertainty, and my unease deepened, the tower's creaks growing deeper, as if echoing my suspicion. the shadows lengthening across the floor, their edges too sharp, too defined. I gestured to protein bars and dried fruit on the table, their wrappers crinkling in the silence, a sound that felt intrusive, out of place. Hungry? Not really. His eyes fixed on the radio, its presence a magnet for his attention. His fingers twitching again, a subtle tick that betrayed his calm. That working? Spotty reception, but reliable enough, I said, moving toward it, watching his reaction. His posture stiffening slightly, a predator sensing a trap, his smile flickering, too wide, too perfect. I should call this in. Let headquarters know you're safe. His face shifted, a flicker of panic breaking his calm, his eyes narrowing, his body leaning forward, as if to intercept me. No need. Don't want to trouble anyone. I'll leave at first light. It's protocol? I insisted, reaching for the handset, my fingers brushing its cold plastic, my heart pounding as I anticipated his reaction. Static roared as I turned it on, a harsh wall of sound drowning out all channels, the lights flickering as if the radio itself resisted, its circuits rebelling against his presence. Strange? I muttered, my voice tight, my eyes locked on his. Was working earlier. He smiled, his teeth too white, too even, gleaming unnaturally in the dim light. A predator's grin in a human mask. Interference happens in these mountains. I offered the sleeping bag, pointing to the cot, its springs creaking as I gestured, the sound a faint echo of the tower's groans. Rest. I'll take the chair on night watch. He wandered the room, touching my equipment with a familiarity that chilled me. His fingers lingering on the binoculars, the logbooks, the maps, as if claiming them. His touch leaving no trace, yet the air seemed heavier, as if his presence altered the room's gravity. Fascinating job. All alone, watching for fires. His voice was smooth now, too smooth, each word calculated. A performance that felt rehearsed. His eyes glinting with a light that wasn't reflected from the room. Has its moments? I said, checking the perimeter alarms on the control panel. All active, their green light steady, yet offering no comfort, their assurance hollow against the growing dread. You hiking alone? Just me? He replied, peering through the binoculars into the dark beyond the windows, his reflection in the glass distorted, his features blurring at the edges, as if the glass refused to hold him. Just us up here. The words hung heavy, the air tightening, the tower's groans growing deeper, as if the structure itself sensed a threat. Its wood flexing like a living thing, its shadows stretching too long, too sharp. He asked about the next tower, his tone too casual, a question that felt like a probe, then mentioned closed towers, citing Tower 12, a name absent from public maps, known only to rangers and lookouts, its mention a violation of the forest's unspoken boundaries. My blood ran cold, the room seeming to contract, the shadows lengthening, their edges curling like fingers. Wouldn't know. Only been here 3 months. But you've seen the records, he pressed, gesturing to my file cabinet. Its metal surface scratched and dented, his eyes narrowing, as if probing for a lie, his smile flickering, too wide, too perfect. I deflected, urging him to rest, my voice steady but strained, and retreated to my private quarters. A small room with a bunk, a single window, and a locked door, the bolts sliding into place with a heavy click. I pressed the knife against my chest, its blade a cold anchor, and sat on the bunk, the springs creaking, my ears straining for his movements. His footsteps paced the main room, never stopping, never slowing. A relentless rhythm that echoed through the wood, keeping sleep at bay. The tower's groans a chorus of unease that mirrored my own. At midnight, a metallic scratching jolted me awake. The lock on my door, a thin tool probing the deadbolt, the sound precise and deliberate, a violation that set my heart racing. I yanked the door open, knife raised, the blade glinting in the dim light, to find him bent over with a straightened paper clip. His face unnaturally calm, his eyes unblinking, as if caught in an act he didn't fear. Behind him, my gun cabinet's padlock lay broken on the floor, the door ajar, my rifle exposed, its barrel glinting in the moonlight, a silent accusation. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded, my voice shaking, the knife a barrier between us, its edge trembling in my grip. His smile widened, unnatural, his teeth gleaming like polished bone, too white, too even, a grin that belonged to something else. "You're not ready yet, but you will be. They're coming soon." The overhead lights flickered once, twice, then died, plunging the tower into darkness, the air thickening, as if the room itself recoiled. I lunged, the knife slashing air, but connected with nothing, the space where he stood empty, the silence absolute. Emergency lights kicked on, casting a dull red glow, revealing an empty tower, the sleeping bag undisturbed, the front door locked, the stairwell deserted. Only the broken padlock and paperclip remained, proof he'd been real, their presence a taunt in the crimson light, the tower's groans a low, mournful dirge. I barricaded myself in my quarters, rifle across my lap, knife at my side, the tower's creaks now sinister, each one a potential threat, the wood seeming to flex, as if alive, its groans a language I couldn't decipher. Morning revealed no footprints leaving the tower, only his approach from the west, etched in the soft earth. A single set of tracks that ended at the stairs, as if he'd vanished into the air itself, the ground pristine, unmarred by his departure. The radio sputtered static, a low, erratic hum that seemed to carry a faint rhythm, like a heartbeat out of sync, and the satellite phone remained dead despite a full charge. Its screen a blank accusation, its silence a severance from the outside world. I reported the incident to headquarters, my voice steady but strained, the words feeling inadequate, their response skeptical, promising a check-in within days. A timeline that felt like an eternity in the tower's oppressive quiet. For 2 days, I maintained my duties, rifle within reach, its weight a constant reminder of the threat. Sleeping with the door barricaded, a chair wedged under the knob, the knife beside my pillow, its blade a cold comfort. Footsteps circled the tower at night, slow and deliberate, their rhythm unbroken, a mechanical precision that echoed the stranger's gait. But no tracks appeared by dawn, the ground pristine, as if the forest erased their presence, its silence complicit in their secrecy. The forest grew quieter, the chatter of birds and insects fading, replaced by a silence that pressed against my eardrums, as if the wildlife sensed a predator I couldn't see, their absence a warning written in the absence of sound. The air grew heavier, the heat more oppressive, the clouds from the northwest lingering on the horizon, their edges still boiling, their presence a constant reminder of the forest's unease. On the third night, a faint blue light pulsed in the northeastern quadrant, near Tower 12, a decommissioned post abandoned after a fire 5 years ago, its structure slated for demolition, its name a whisper among rangers, a place of cautionary tales. The light's rhythm, 3 quick flashes, pause, repeat, was artificial, deliberate, a signal that pierced the dark like a beacon, its glow unnatural, a sickly blue that seemed to hum in the air. I adjusted my binoculars, the lenses cold against my skin, and focused on the source, the light pulsing with an eerie consistency, its rhythm hypnotic, as if whispering secrets the forest guarded, its presence a challenge to my sanity. Tower 12 was 15 miles away, its skeleton of charred wood and rusted metal hidden in a valley scarred by fire, its history a patchwork of rumors, equipment failures, missing rangers, strange lights reported by lookouts who never returned. The radio crackled, the distorted voice returning, clearer now, its urgency sharper, cutting through the static like a blade. "Alan, don't go to the tower. Something dangerous waits. They're using it as a beacon." I snatched the handset, my voice trembling, my fingers gripping the plastic until my knuckles whitened. "Who is this? How are you accessing this frequency?" The voice ignored me, its words urgent, fragmented. "They're not what they seem. Watch for imposters. They'll come wearing faces." I demanded answers, my voice rising, but static swallowed the voice, leaving only fragments. "Beacon imposters, stay away." The light continued its pulse, a siren call that drew me despite the warnings, its rhythm a heartbeat in the dark, as if the forest itself were alive, its pulse synchronized with the tower's groans. In the tower's restricted files, buried in a dusty cabinet, its drawers sticking from years of disuse. I found reports of strange occurrences near Tower 12. Their pages brittle, their ink faded but legible. Equipment failures, radios dying without cause, compasses spinning wildly, their needles dancing as if possessed. Rangers losing hours while patrolling, their memories blurred, their watches stopped, their reports laced with confusion. The most recent detailed Douglas Finch, my predecessor, who reported lights 6 months ago, his logs growing erratic, filled with cryptic phrases, patterns in the movement, communications through light. They watch from the dark. He vanished, his tower empty, his belongings untouched. Coffee mug on the desk, boots by the cot, radio still on, its static a silent scream. The official record cited psychological breakdown from isolation, but a handwritten note in the margin, in a different hand, read, "Finch knew too much." A recommendation to close Tower 7 was marked denied in red ink, citing no environmental factors, only Finch's instability, a note that explained the rigorous psychological screening I'd endured before my assignment, a process that felt less like evaluation and more like a test of endurance, probing for cracks in my psyche. The light pulsed, a challenge to my curiosity, a promise of answers in a forest that offered only questions, its rhythm a lure that tugged at my resolve. I planned a hike to Tower 12, mapping a route through rough terrain. Steep ravines, dense undergrowth, unmarked paths that twisted like veins through the forest's heart. I packed water, protein bars, a first aid kit, a compass, a flashlight, and extra batteries, each item a talisman against the unknown, my backpack heavy with purpose. As I worked, footsteps circled the tower, unhurried, indifferent to my alarms, their rhythm precise, mechanical, as if marking time, pausing beneath my window before fading into the dark. Their absence a taunt, the tower groaning in response, its wood flexing, its shadows stretching too long, too sharp, as if the forest itself were closing in. At dawn, a Forest Service Jeep broke the silence, its engine rumbling along the access road. A green speck against the forest's green, its tires crunching gravel, a sound that felt intrusive, out of place. I grabbed my rifle, its weight a constant reminder of the threat. The backpack I'd prepared for Tower 12 by the door, its straps worn but sturdy. I descended the stairs, my boots thudding on the iron steps, my knife tucked at my back, its blade a hidden reassurance. A ranger stepped out, his uniform crisp, its creases sharp, his posture too perfect, too deliberate, adjusting his hat with mechanical precision, his movements too smooth, too calculated. "Alan," he called, his tone dripping with false familiarity, a warmth that felt rehearsed, his smile too wide, too perfect. "Good to see you, buddy." I froze, my hand tightening on the rifle, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I'd never met him, yet he spoke of a non-existent conversation about fishing near Buffalo Creek. A detail so specific it chilled me, and claimed knowledge of my divorce, finalized 2 months ago, a fact I'd shared only in my intake interview, its mention a violation that set my nerves alight. "Kevin Hartwell," he introduced himself, extending a hand, his smile too wide, his grip cold despite the summer heat, his fingers firm but lifeless, like a mannequin's. His boots, caked with dry mud, contradicted his claim of driving through a flooded marsh, the mud flaking off, not damp as a recent crossing would demand, and his watch ran 30 minutes fast, its hands ticking with a precision that felt wrong, a discrepancy that gnawed at me. Inside, he knew my coffee's hiding spot in the left cupboard, a habit I'd never shared, reaching for the bag of grounds without hesitation, his movements mechanical, as if rehearsed, his familiarity a violation of my sanctuary. He claimed to check on my report, but his eyes hardened when I mentioned Tower 12, insisting it was unsafe, citing Finch's obsession with lights and patterns. His voice smooth but edged with warning, his smile never reaching his eyes. I tested him, asking about his route, his boots betraying his lie, the mud dry, the marsh's dampness absent, and his watch's discrepancy a silent accusation. He inspected my equipment with eerie precision, his fingers gliding over the radio, weather instruments and computer, his knowledge thorough yet lifeless, like a machine executing a program, his movements too smooth, too calculated. He asked about my satellite phone, Missing since his arrival, its absence a theft I hadn't noticed, its charging station empty, a void that mirrored the growing dread in my chest. As he left, promising to return with supplies, he drove not to headquarters but west, toward Tower 12. His jeep's path visible through gaps in the trees, its dust trail a faint scar against the forest screen. I grabbed my pack, rifle, and journal, locking the tower and tracking him through the forest, using game trails to stay hidden, my boots silent on the pine needles, the air heavy with the scent of sap and earth, the forest silence a weight that pressed against my lungs. 5 miles in, the forest grew silent, the chatter of birds and insects replaced by a stillness that pressed against my chest, the air thick with the scent of pine and fear, the trees standing too still, their shadows too sharp. The radio crackled, the voice clearer, urgent, cutting through the static like a beacon in the dark. Alan, turn back. They know you're following. They're coming before sunset. It urged me to check my left boot, a command so specific it chilled me, my hands trembling as I unlaced it, my fingers brushing against a folded note tucked beneath the insole, its edges worn but intact. In my handwriting it read, "If you're reading this, they found you. 5th cycle. The Rangers aren't Rangers. Stay away from Tower 12. It's a trap." It listed items, rifle, compass, southeast sector maps, water purification tablets, a metal box under the desk's floorboard, and warned of Kevin, who knew me from prior cycles, his familiarity a product of repeated observation, his presence a calculated deception. The voice claimed to be me, from the last cycle, urging me to return to the tower, to find the box and escape. Its tone a mix of desperation and resolve, a fragment of myself speaking across time. I turned east, dread driving me, the forest shadows reaching like claws, the trees seeming to shift, their branches curling inward, their bark glinting with an unnatural sheen. 2 hours of hard hiking brought me to a ridge overlooking the tower, my breath ragged, my muscles burning, the air thick with the scent of pine and fear. 5 Forest Service jeeps waited below, 5 identical Kevins conferring in unison. Their postures identical, feet planted at the same width, hands clasped behind their backs, heads tilted at the same angle, their faces blank, their eyes empty, unblinking. Their movements were synchronized, mechanical, a single entity in 5 bodies, and as I raised my binoculars, they turned toward my ridge, sensing me, their gaze piercing the distance, their expressions unchanging, as if carved from stone. I circled north, sprinting for the stairs as their formation broke, their footsteps pounding in perfect rhythm, a chorus of pursuit that echoed through the trees, their voices a unified drone. Alan Peterson, open. 3 knocks shook the door, their voices flat, a single tone multiplied. Alan Peterson, open. I barricaded it with a chair and bookshelf, the wood creaking under the weight, my hands trembling as I pried up a floorboard beneath the desk, my fingernails catching on a seam, the board lifting to reveal a dented metal box, its latch cold under my fingers, its surface scratched and scarred, as if it had been hidden for years. Inside, a leather-bound journal and a folded map with unfamiliar markings, their edges worn, their ink faded but legible. The door splintered as I grabbed the listed items, rifle, compass, maps, purification tablets, stuffing the journal and map into my pack, its weight a reminder of the stakes. 5 Kevins entered, chanting, "The cycle must continue." Their faces identical, their movements a single entity, their eyes glinting with a light that wasn't human, their presence a violation of the tower's sanctity. I slid down the emergency cable, its metal burning through my gloves, the friction searing my palms, and sprinted into the forest, their synchronized footsteps pursuing, relentless and mechanical, their voices a unified drone. Alan Peterson. The cycle is incomplete. I fled north, then east, the forest darkening, the air thick with the scent of pine and fear, the trees looming like sentinels, their branches curling inward, their shadows stretching too long, too sharp. Near midnight, the map marked a cave as a blind spot, a narrow gap between boulders barely wide enough to squeeze through, its entrance hidden by ferns, its air cool and damp, the scent of earth and stone a stark contrast to the forest's heat. I crawled inside, the stones scraping my arms, the darkness absolute, and found tally marks scratched into the wall. 5 sets, each with 4 lines crossed by a diagonal, 20 marks in total, their edges rough as if carved in haste. Below, a message in my handwriting. 5th cycle, read the journal. I pulled the leather-bound journal from my pack, its pages worn but intact, its leather cover soft from years of handling, and read by flashlight, the beam trembling in my grip, its light casting jagged shadows on the cave's walls. The journal detailed my entrapment in a temporal experiment, reset each time I neared Tower 12, my consciousness fragmenting to warn myself across cycles, a splinter of self that defied their control. The entities, not human, studied fear, resistance, and adaptability, their perception limited by patterns, blind to the cave and box, which defied their logic, their focus on predictable behaviors leaving gaps in their surveillance. The journal documented 4 prior cycles, each beginning with the radio warning, the stranger's visit, the ranger's pursuit, and my capture near Tower 12, the timeline resetting with my memory wiped, my life erased and rewritten. The voice on the radio was me, a fragment existing outside their control, growing clearer each cycle, its warnings a desperate attempt to break the loop. The final entry, written as they approached, urged me to reach the eastern highway by sunset, a boundary beyond their influence, the cave and box my only advantages, their existence a fracture in their otherwise seamless control. The journal's pages were a map of my fractured self, each entry a snapshot of a mind unraveling, then rebuilding, its tone shifting from confusion to defiance, from victim to resistor. The first cycle was a blur of fear, the stranger's visit a shock that left me paralyzed, the ranger's pursuit a nightmare I couldn't escape. By the 3rd cycle, I'd begun to suspect the truth, leaving notes in hidden places, under floorboards, in boots, in the cave, clues to guide my future self. The 4th cycle saw the metal box, a discovery that changed the game, its contents a lifeline across time. The 5th cycle, the one I was living, was the clearest, the voice on the radio almost undistorted, my handwriting steady, resolute, a testament to a self that refused to break. The journal's final words were a plea. Break the loop. Reach the highway. They cannot follow you there. At dawn, I returned to the tower, its door hanging on broken hinges, the main room a wreckage of smashed equipment and scattered belongings, the radio a twisted heap of plastic and wire, the laptop's screen cracked, its data lost. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and dust, the floor littered with papers, their edges curling like dead leaves. The radio crackled, my voice clear, urgent, cutting through the silence like a beacon. Alan, they've set a perimeter. The road to the east is your only chance. Reach it by nightfall. It explained the entity's study, their focus on patterns, the cave's blind spot a quirk of mineral composition or natural anomaly, a gap in their perception that allowed my resistance to grow. This is my last transmission, it warned, its tone heavy with finality. If you fail, I can't reach you again with this clarity. The radio died, its lights fading, and I pocketed matches, a candy bar, and extra socks, the journal secure against my chest, its weight a reminder of my fractured self, its pages a map of a mind fighting to be whole. I headed east, the forest warping, paths vanishing into solid undergrowth, trees repeating, their bark glinting with an unnatural sheen, their branches curling inward, as if to trap me. The compass spun wildly, its needle dancing, then settled on east, a fragile guide in a world that seemed to shift with each step. The terrain changed, a ridge stretching impossibly long, its slopes steep and treacherous, the journal's warning clear. Trust the compass, not your eyes. The terrain changes to confuse and delay. The forest silence was absolute, the chatter of birds and insects gone, the air heavy with the scent of pine and something sharper, like metal heated by a forge. The clouds from the northwest lingered, their edges still boiling, their presence a constant reminder of the forest's unease, their light casting the trees in an unearthly pallor, their shadows too sharp, too defined. A distorted barrier loomed, a visible division where reality wavered, trees bending at unnatural angles, their trunks twisting like sinew, their leaves glowing with colors too vivid, greens that burned, browns that pulsed, reds that bled into the air. Crossing it was agony. Pain exploded behind my eyes, a white-hot spike that blurred my vision, vertigo twisting my senses, the air dense, pushing back against my skin, as if resisting my passage. My body felt wrong, simultaneously too heavy and too light, my limbs trembling, my stomach churning, bile rising in my throat. I stumbled, catching myself against a tree that felt both solid and insubstantial, its bark shifting under my fingers, like skin under pressure. The forest twisted around me, reality bending in nauseating ways, the ground rippling like water, the sky fracturing into jagged shards of blue and black. I forced another step, then another, my breath ragged, my teeth gritted, the journal's words a mantra. Push through. Don't stop. The barrier stretched longer than it appeared, a thin membrane from outside proving an agonizing half-mile of distorted space, time losing meaning, each step a battle against a world that fought to keep me. When I emerged, I collapsed to my knees, gasping, my limbs shaking uncontrollably, my vision swimming, the forest ahead normal, strikingly so, its trees standing straight, its paths clear, its sunlight filtering naturally through the canopy. I vomited until nothing remained but painful dry heaves, my body racked with spasms, my mind reeling from the crossing. Minutes passed before I could raise my head, the silence absolute, no birds calling, no insects buzzing, no wind rustling the leaves, the natural world silenced, as if holding its breath. The compass pointed steadily east now, its needle unwavering, a guide I clung to, its certainty a lifeline in a world that had betrayed me. I rose on shaky legs, my pack heavy, my rifle a cold weight against my shoulder, and continued my journey, the highway 7 miles away, according to the map, a goal I might reach by early evening, well before the journal's deadline of sunset. For hours after crossing the barrier, with the sun beginning its westward descent, I paused atop a small rise to gauge my progress, my breath ragged, my muscles burning, my water supply dwindling faster than planned, the heat unexpected, oppressive. In the distance, perhaps 2 miles away, I spotted movement. A line of green uniformed figures moving methodically through the trees, at least 10 of them, forming a search line, sweeping the forest in a coordinated pattern. Their movements synchronized, each maintaining exact spacing. Their postures identical, their faces hidden by distance but unmistakably wrong. I dropped to the ground, my heart pounding, my hands trembling as I raised my binoculars, the lenses fogging from my breath. They were rangers or something wearing their form, their faces identical, their eyes scanning with machine-like regularity, their movements a single entity in multiple bodies, their presence a violation of the forest silence. I moved down the slope, staying low, using thick underbrush for cover, my boots silent on the pine needles, my breath controlled, each step a calculation. The rangers' precision made their movements predictable, their paths straight, never deviating to check dense undergrowth or natural hollows, their focus on patterns leaving gaps in their search. I found a depression beneath fallen logs and thick ferns, its shadows deep, its air cool, and lay flat, controlling my breathing as the line approached, their green uniforms materializing through the trees, their synchronized steps a rhythm that echoed the stranger's gait, the Kevin's pursuit, a chorus of mechanical intent. As they drew closer, I could make out their faces, all identical copies of Kevin, blank expressions, eyes scanning with camera-like precision, their skin glinting with an artificial sheen, like high-quality plastic, their movements too smooth, too perfect, their presence a mockery of humanity. They passed within 50 yards, then 40, then 30, their synchronized breathing a faint hiss, a sound that wasn't human but mechanical, a collective exhalation that chilled me. I pressed myself deeper into the earth, barely breathing, my heart pounding, my hands gripping the rifle, its weight a reminder of my vulnerability. At 20 yards, I noticed a gap in their line, slightly wider than the others, a fleeting opportunity, a crack in their otherwise seamless formation. I remained frozen, waiting for the perfect moment, my muscles tense, my mind racing, the journal's warning a mantra. Reach the highway. When the gap aligned with my hiding spot, I started to move, my body low, my steps silent, but a fallen branch snapped beneath my boot, the sound sharp, a betrayal in the silence. The rangers didn't react like humans with startled glances or hesitation. Instead, all heads turned simultaneously toward the sound, moving with perfect coordination, their eyes locking onto my position, their faces blank, unblinking, their gaze piercing the underbrush, as if they could see through the ferns, through me. I froze again, praying the shadows would hold, my breath caught in my throat, my body trembling, the rifle a cold weight against my chest. For endless seconds, the entire line stood motionless, scanning, their synchronized stillness more terrifying than pursuit, their presence a weight that pressed against my lungs. Then, with the same coordination, they resumed their march, their steps resuming their rhythm, their eyes sweeping forward, as if dismissing the sound, their focus returning to their pattern, their predictability my only advantage. Once they passed, I counted to 30, my heart pounding, my hands shaking with adrenaline and relief, and slipped from my hiding place, moving perpendicular to their search line. My steps silent, my body low, the forest silence a cloak that hid me. For the next hour, I pushed forward with renewed urgency, the ranger's presence a reminder that I was nearing the boundary of their influence. The Eastern Highway a beacon of freedom, its asphalt a line they couldn't cross. But their presence also meant they knew roughly where I was, their net tightening, their pursuit relentless, their synchronized steps a drumbeat in the distance, a reminder that time was running out, the sun sinking lower, its light casting long shadows that seemed to reach for me, their edges too sharp, too alive. Disaster struck as I rounded a thick stand of pines, my breath ragged, my muscles burning, my water nearly gone, the heat sapping my strength, my thoughts hazy from dehydration. I nearly collided with a solitary ranger, standing barely 3 feet away. His presence so sudden, so wrong, that I froze, my heart stopping, my hands trembling, the rifle slipping slightly in my grip. This close, the wrongness of the entity was unmistakable. Its face was Kevin's, but the skin had an artificial sheen, like high-quality plastic, its eyes tracking my movement with camera-like precision. Their pupils too small, too fixed, their gaze devoid of warmth. Most disturbing was the visible seam running along the side of its neck, disappearing beneath the collar of its uniform, as if the skin had been applied over something else entirely, a construct wearing a human mask, its edges imperfect, its facade cracking under scrutiny. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other, the forest silent, the air thick with the scent of pine and fear, the ranger's presence a violation that set my nerves alight. Then I swung my rifle but upward, catching it beneath its chin, the impact a dull thud that should have knocked a human unconscious. The ranger merely staggered backward, its head tilted at an impossible angle, its neck bending in a way that defied bone, its smile returning, too wide, too perfect, its teeth gleaming in the fading light. I ran, my legs pumping, my lungs burning, my pack bouncing against my spine, the forest blurring around me, the trees a tunnel of green and shadow. Behind me, a sound erupted, not human, but a high-pitched signal, a piercing wail that carried through the trees, a call to the others, a beacon that marked my position, its frequency cutting through the silence like a blade. The synchronized footsteps resumed, gaining ground with mechanical efficiency, their rhythm unbroken, their pursuit relentless, their breathing a unified hiss that echoed through the forest, a chorus of intent that drove me forward, my fear of fuel that burned hotter than exhaustion. The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky orange and red, its light fading, the shadows lengthening, their edges curling like fingers, as if the forest itself conspired to hold me. I pushed my body beyond its limits, dehydration making my thoughts hazy, each breath rasping painfully in my throat, my legs threatening to buckle, my vision blurring, the highway a distant promise, a line I had to reach, a boundary that meant freedom. I crested a final rise as darkness began to fall in earnest, my breath ragged, my muscles screaming, my pack a weight that threatened to drag me down. There, cutting through the forest ahead, was the Eastern Highway, a long strip of asphalt barely visible in the fading light, perhaps half a mile away, its surface glinting faintly, a beacon of hope in the gathering dusk. So close, I started down the slope, half running, half stumbling, my boots slipping on loose earth, my hands grasping at branches for balance. The forest's silence absolute, its shadows closing in, their edges too sharp, too alive. Behind me, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, the synchronized footsteps a drumbeat, the rangers breathing a hiss that seemed to come from all directions. Their presence a weight that pressed against my lungs, their intent clear, their net tightening. As I neared the tree-line bordering the highway, I spotted headlights moving along the road, their beams cutting through the dusk, a flicker of normalcy in a world gone wrong. Ranger vehicles patrolled its length, moving slowly in both directions, their green paint glinting, their presence a barrier I hadn't anticipated, their synchronized movements a reminder of the entity's reach. I had to time this perfectly, my body trembling, my breath ragged, my mind racing. The journals promise a lifeline. They cannot cross the highway. I reached the edge of the forest, concealing myself behind the last line of trees, their bark rough under my fingers, their shadows deep, a cloak that hid me. The rangers behind me were close enough that I could hear their synchronized breathing, a mechanical hiss that sent chills down my spine, their footsteps accelerating to match my sprint, their presence a weight that threatened to crush me. A patrol vehicle passed on the highway, then another, their headlights sweeping the road, their engines a low rumble that felt absurdly normal, a sound from a world I'd almost forgotten. In the distance, a single pair of headlights approached, their beams softer, less harsh, the vehicle's silhouette different. Not the distinctive profile of a Forest Service Jeep, but a civilian truck, its paint faded, its frame battered, a relic from a world untouched by the forest's secrets. My only chance, a fleeting opportunity, a crack in the entity's net. I summoned my last reserves of strength, my muscles screaming, my lungs burning, and burst from the tree-line, my legs pumping desperately across the grassy verge separating forest from asphalt, my arms waving frantically, my voice a ragged whisper, too weak to carry, my body swaying with exhaustion, the truck growing larger, its headlights blinding, its horn a faint warning in the distance. The rangers emerged from the trees, their synchronized footsteps a thunder that shook the earth, their figures silhouetted against the forest's dark, their faces identical, their eyes glinting with a light that wasn't human, their pursuit relentless, their intent clear. The truck's brakes screeched, its tires smoking against the asphalt, the vehicle skidding, stopping barely 10 feet from where I stood, swaying, my legs trembling, my vision blurring, my breath a painful rasp. The driver's door opened, and an elderly man emerged, his face weathered, his shock of white hair glinting in the headlights, his expression shifting from anger to concern, his eyes widening as he took in my state, my clothes torn, my face pale, my hands trembling, the rifle still clutched in my grip, its weight a reminder of the chase. "Good Lord, son, I nearly hit you," he called, stepping toward me. His voice rough but kind, a human sound that anchored me, a lifeline to a world I'd almost lost. "Please," I gasped, my voice a ragged whisper, barely audible, my throat raw, my body shaking. "Help me." I glanced back, the rangers standing in a perfect line at the forest's edge, their faces blank, their eyes unblinking, their bodies motionless, as if bound by an invisible barrier, their presence a weight that pressed against my chest, their gaze piercing, yet unable to cross the asphalt, the highway a line they couldn't breach, the journal's promise fulfilled. The old man looked where I was looking, his eyes scanning the tree-line, but showed no reaction to the identical figures watching us, his expression unchanged, as if he couldn't see them, their forms invisible to a mind untainted by the forest's secrets, a blind spot that mirrored the cave, the box, the fractures in their control. "You look half dead, boy," he said, taking my arm, his grip firm but gentle, his skin warm, human, a stark contrast to the ranger's cold touch, his concern etching deeper lines in his weathered face. "Come on, get in." He helped me into the passenger seat of his battered pickup truck, its interior smelling of oil and old leather, its dashboard cracked, its seats worn, a relic from a world untouched by the forest's secrets. My legs gave out completely as I collapsed into the seat, my body trembling, my hands shaking, the rifle slipping from my grip, The journal pressed against my chest, its weight a reminder of my fractured self, its pages a map of a mind fighting to be whole. The old man climbed back into the driver's seat, his movements slow but deliberate, his eyes scanning me with concern, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice a ragged whisper, my throat raw, my eyes burning with tears, the relief so profound it overwhelmed me, a flood that broke through the dam of fear and exhaustion. "I thought I was dead. Been lost in those woods?" he asked, his concern deepening, his eyes narrowing as he took in my state, his hands gripping the steering wheel, the truck's engine rumbling, a sound that felt absurdly normal, a tether to a world I'd almost forgotten. "You're not the first. Something strange about that forest." I looked back through the rear window, the rangers still standing at the forest's edge, their figures wavering, their outlines distorting, as if dissolving into the night, their forms becoming translucent, then fading altogether, like mirages swallowed by the dark. Their presence a memory that lingered, a weight that pressed against my chest. Even as the truck pulled away, the highway stretching into the night, its asphalt a boundary they couldn't cross. "You have no idea," I replied, my voice breaking, the tears streaming now, the relief a tidal wave that swept away the fear, the exhaustion, the fragments of a self I'd fought to hold together. I'd broken the cycle, escaped their experiment, a loop that had reset 5 times, each iteration wiping my memory, rewriting my life, trapping me in their study of fear and resistance. This time, I'd won, the journal's promise fulfilled, the highway a line that marked my freedom, a boundary that severed their control. But I knew they would continue, their experiment evolving, their net cast for others, new subjects to trap in their temporal web, their methods refined, their patterns adjusted, their study of humanity a relentless pursuit. Yet, there would be a voice to guide the next victim, a fragment of resistance that defied their control, a beacon in the dark, a warning whispered across cycles. My voice, preserved in the fractures of their experiment, a splinter of self that had learned their game, mapped their blind spots, and fought to break free. The journal, clutched against my chest, was a testament to that fight. Its pages a map of a mind that refused to break, a record of a self that had clawed its way to freedom. The truck rumbled on, the forest receding, the highway stretching into the night, its asphalt a path to a world I'd almost forgotten, a world where the pulse of the unseen couldn't reach. What would you do? Alone in a tower, your name crackling through a radio, warning of imposters who wear familiar faces, their eyes glinting with a light that isn't human. Could you navigate a forest that shifts to trap you, trusting a note in your own hand you don't remember writing, its words a lifeline across a fractured self? Or would you succumb to the pulse of the unseen, its rhythm a lure that pulls you into the dark? The choice is yours, but the wilderness waits, always listening, its secrets buried deep, its pulse a heartbeat that never stops.